Alright. Um, I'm gonna video present a post here. There's like 4 or 5 major video posts and pretty much written posts. Probably even like 8 written posts that are like not almost done, but the topics that I need to do are all lined up and for the most part done. But they're not written, and they're like big comments or topics, concepts. So I'm doing I've been doing, if you haven't noticed, like kind of random intermediary posts, video posts, just because magical human procrastination. I hope you like that. I just did it normally and it fell forward, and then I decided to leave it for the camera. Technically, I was going to leave it anyway, but now there's a camera in front of me, so now it's a thing. Anyway, maybe this qualifies as role playing. Anyway, all right. So one of the topics I didn't fully describe or conceptualize, excuse me, is that when there is a negative link through, like I said, I've been saying how DNA is a link through hyperspace, basically, for consciousness. And so when there is one through projected thoughts of mind, and mainly actually emotion, but it's also a construct of the mind, and it is causing one to struggle or feel impressed upon or emotionally drained, there is a link between that. That thought acts like a frequency tuner or a code or key or something like that, that then dials in, kind of like neurotransmitters and the shapes, how they fit into certain receptors. It's like that emotion has a frequency shape that fits into the frequency receptor of you, and that dials into a frequency that connects you with that individual, or the wherever there's a source of that trauma or annoyance or struggle, wherever, if you're, thinking about it, Illuminati Congo, he's an artist on Facebook. I've always listened to his music, and then I see him on Facebook. It's kind of cool. He said, you ever feel drained after scrolling through your timeline? And so that's the idea. How can you feel drained? So it's emotional. And the thing is, with your timeline, it's like it's going to happen a lot. It's going to happen more than going through the street and having like homeless people or just like random people coming up to you. It's not going to happen as bad as just going through a timeline, because it's full of programming and people basically impressing upon you what they want you to feel and want you to think. And so, and that's, people, as well as like, if you don't have a blocker, the advertisements and things like that. And so, if you can sit there, before my shoulder broke in half, I could sit there and do truckloads of mulch or whatever it was, and that was like an outdoor job. There's fine advanced, what is the word? I can't think of the word right now. There's like 5 words I can't think of throughout the day. Only when I'm doing a video. Like carpentry, or even certain outdoor work where it's like heavy materials or machinery, just to a bit, not like a backhoe or anything. And more mentally fulfilling stuff. But the idea is that putting a lot of muscle strength into it, and I would run around and do flips afterwards. You talk to some people, you deal with some information, you go through some cyber area like that, and it's like draining. You come out of it like you ran a marathon. So what is that? That's energy, okay? So the idea is when you have a source where there is a type of trauma or just annoyance, basically just an emotional struggle, when that is repeatedly there, if it's there for a second, the same thing happens. But when it's there for, it's causing a drainage, it's linking you to the source. Person, place, thing, concept, whatever it is linking you there and feeding energy into the source, or of your pain. That's what it is. And as well, you can theorize or conceptualize now how easy it is to see that when you're centered in the self and you're feeling that wholeness of being, you're feeding energy to the source of you. It's literally that simple to see. And so, of course, if you wanted power and you didn't want to get it by being a way shower to passing people on to their source, but then you get like chunk change of energy because you have to cultivate your own. But if you were doing that, you get it automatically by cultivating your own, because it's when you do something that produces energies for others, it produces energy for you. When you basically do something that takes energy from others, it takes energy from them and you. But if it's giving the energy from them to you, then you gain energy from that. That means when you stop doing that, there's no more parasitic relationship. That person that was doing that ends up losing more energy in the long run. Which we're trying to set up a cyber spatial triage, hyperspatial at that point, but it's also cyberspatial because it's these. I'm going to explain a lot of stuff in the coming weeks, as long as I don't get hit by a meteor or something, which probably would be interesting. Anyway, basically a triage for these people, the races of people who have been sucking energy up like vampires and shut off their energy systems to the point where they don't have access to their own source. If a person dies like that, they can end up in an intermediary, interdimensional plane where there is basically no return, or at least no recycling, and they return in a new, not a new form, it's not reincarnation, it's just like there's a pause and then a break and they come back refreshed. If there's no that, there's mutations that occur on a spiritual level, and that's where these like interdimensional vampires basically come from, and no one has to go through that if they don't want to. Some people say, hell yeah, let's find out what's down there. They're like psychonauts or deep sea explorers or something like that. Alright, and but these groups that have been forced into it, if anyone has been forced into that, including the ones who said, we're going to force each other to do this so that when we all get blamed, we can go, I didn't mean to do it, I was forced to do it by my family. Anyone who was forced to do it, I used to say, screw them, they're lying, but the truth is, if they were forced to do it, then it doesn't work. We can't hold them to their contracts. It doesn't mean we can't hold them to responsibilities, but we can't hold them to afterwards when they say, I was waiting for this stuff to end. Stuff being a nicer word to use there, because it's a stuff storm. Because they're playing like they're trapped into it just so they can keep going. It doesn't matter. Once this begins to peel back and people are turning away from the agreements, these unconscious agreements, these agreements out of force and duress, and we see changes taking place, which they've already begun if you know where to look. Everybody that assists in the liberation of humanity is protected. That's how it works. And as well, there's some larger spiritual aspect to this doing that. It's not like we're going to have all scalar, or whoever is going to have all scalar stuff around, leaders and things like that. There's some spiritual energy here that is masterminding liberation for the masses. As well, though, the large masses who are like still fighting for war, some of them are going to get off worse than the people who have been chopping people this whole time and then turn and go towards the light or liberation. I don't want to say light, because then, there could be some guy with a big light going, yeah, come over this way, and they got like hedge clippers or like chopping people, alright? So, and the whole light trap and all that. Too much artificial advanced technology methods of recreating what's spiritual, or the original, I mean. But that's the thing. And again, it's a setup. If they've been doing this stuff and they see like the waves crashing, like we better get on the other side, and they get over the other side, and then the humans who are just like, yeah, what about this and that, and they're like still in animal mode, alright, they're gonna end up getting hurt. But that's, it's part of the whole process as well. Not them getting hurt, but us trying to reach them, the masses. But they have to pull their eyes away from the TV and the artificial media. It's controlled by a not mind human person. And so the idea is that they're kind of trapped if they've been drinking of the energy of people for so long, and without a resolution, they become the interdimensionals that go back in time and start the whole thing. So that's the point. When we heal together, we don't give in to this war that has destroyed worlds so many times, we things change. And I don't know, I come at it from a balanced perspective because there's a few things I would change about my position here, kind of. But if I was younger, I'd say, yeah, there's like 50,000 things I'd change. It'd be awesome. I'd give myself like a flying bed so I can just like live everywhere and like no, or how, whatever. Just like ridiculous stuff people come up with. So it's like I could do this, but I know there's a lot of suffering, and I know there's a lot of illusion, and I know this place is an illusion. It's literally, if you could see the number, if you could see the sheet that outlines the numbers of the frequency, that outlines the digital hyperspatial location in proximity to the central core reality, and it's literally, they have it mapped out, like we're Earth 3, or it was like 6 or something, and this is number blah 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 blah, frequency rate to reality number blah blah blah, and crew maintenance number blah blah blah, the elite families of some name and bloodline blah handle this reality, and they started in 6,000 some it's like, whoa, this is the craziest stuff. They got like this whole place mapped out. But so the idea is that I kind of wrapped up what I was going to say in a larger, longer presentation in a shorter way that's also more, for me, kind of integrated, because I didn't have to read directly from something. And I'm going to leave it as that, and if I want to, I'll post the link to this, and it's a short one, so I'll add this in. It'll be only 5 minutes. But that was the idea, there's a link when that happens. So this is the main idea. That this post is called Energy Vampirism and the Internet. And it's part of what this is all about. I'm telling you, everything's consciousness. The Internet is sharing consciousness because it's activated through that. I don't know how to describe it. You can get something. Alright, so the means of controlling people, it's all based upon anything conscious and anything that can be made conscious of. Like so basically, if I design a symbol and say stuff to you, fills your minds with concepts, and then flash the symbol up a certain number of times even, and your subconscious knows that number, and then represent that number in other videos and areas, I'm going to build a collective neural net hive within you that is going to carry on the ideas. I'm not even going to have to traumatize you, but if I traumatize you and put certain stuff on the screen, or kidnap you and smacked you around and then showed you it, it would have that much more power, okay? Or if I put it in your dreams. So what I'm trying to say there is everyone that's looked into my stuff and the other stuff that's going on knows about that. There's programming, subconscious, hypnotism, subliminal, etc., the advertisements, everybody knows stuff like that. Money magic, Babylonian money magic. But the idea is, why does that work? Why does it work if we do it to 1 or 2 people? Okay, why does it work if the population has it done, now people automatically are born attached to that vibe? It's because we're living in a sea of consciousness. And what you do to the primary, the main data processors of the area is going to flow out like a wave from that core, like an earthquake of something from epicenter, and influence the whole. We're in a sea of consciousness that we're floating on. Okay, we're doing that to a primary group is literally like dumping food coloring into the sea of consciousness, and it slowly diffuses out throughout to the whole. That's the idea, not because it's put in and there's 1, 2, 3 people, and now they say stuff, and it's like coming out. It's literally bleeding. It comes out of brain waves. Okay, we're literally in a sea of consciousness. Everything is consciousness. That's the idea. And so the control system is through these means of influencing the whole by influencing a portion, and it's through specific patterns and processes that are basically designed to access the part of us that's under the water, the iceberg that's under the water, the subconscious, and bypass the conscious mind. And so, we're all underwater with our conscious waking self out of it, but the idea is there's a whole mass of power under the water. And so the internet is, therefore everything's just flashing up. It's like a new TV. So it can be used to liberate because of the amount of power you have to control over what you see, but as well for those who do not exert their control and power, just like the TV, how that was, it's used to program. And you know when you're being drained that's what's happening. And so and then as well, you know when people are targeting you in certain ways, just like calling you funny names and stuff like that, focusing on just like the small portion, missing the forest for the trees. That's what that is. And so don't get attached to that. And I'm just going to read from this now because it'll be easier, and it's a short one. So when people go all nutty, the trick on the internet, the trick is to simply observe and not get emotionally entangled. That entanglement on the inside is actually the loosh response that tethers them spiritually to this realm, and ultimately all vampiric acts are sanctioned by lower energy interdimensionals, as that is how the whole system works. Kind of like what I just said, but in different words. So to see what is taking place from a perspective of reason is the key. Not emotion, not reaction, not how you feel about it, not your bias, not what you've been programmed to believe culturally. Always here comes the word stumbles. Just there's a distinction between how you react and which is how you think you're supposed to feel, and how you actually are. How you actually are is of mind, but pure mind, not this construct entanglement. It's actually pure feeling, but pure feeling is biominde, is the soul. We have all these. They did it perfectly. They took you got the reasoned or the biograph, if you will, of what you are, what people are, and they went move that one here, change that one over there, flip this around there. It's all jumbled up. All our words just well, you mean this one with that word? No, this one, when I say that word, it means this one. Okay. And so then you say the word again, and it's supposed to mean that, and you're like, okay, so that version of the word means it's all jumbled up and backwards. But you'll get it once you see it. The feeling isn't described. It's not shaped personally. It doesn't have words to categorize it. It's just what it is. Everything else is ego, emotion, mind constructs, and it's our personality, and that has to be programmed in. And that, when it experiences situations, especially where there's a defense to the ego, where it feels, it will basically jump into an automated reaction, and all that does is it's like an automaton pretending it's alive. That's all it is. Now, when you're out in the field and it's something following me, or if it's animals or something like that, or you feel just certain things that are processing, and your ego is I don't know. Okay, that might be to keep you alive. When you're out here and it's you get mad at that person, that's an illusion. You're not defending anything. In fact, it's the opposite. That's why it's so cleverly roping people in or switched around, because that's where you're actually losing energy. And the way to win, or to not lose energy, is to not struggle, to not involve yourself, to not entangle. So very interesting. So to see what is taking place from a perspective of reason is the key. If someone disagrees or says something out of place that could be seen as incorrect, then simply ask for clarification. You can't go wrong. For instance, what example exactly is the reason you're saying this? How do you know this? Is this something you've experienced directly? What's the reason for this? Is there a line of logic behind these assumptions? What information exactly? What are you referencing with these statements? Of course, the hiccups come. So, people can literally all the time just be this person's that because da-da-da. Alright, well, what string of text or statement or fact or reason are you going off of? Majority of the time anyway, everyone knows they're going off of emotion, but they have to understand that because that's their liberation. And that's the thing. If people want to be liberated, well, then you can't go up there and pull on somebody. You can't, hey, you make me feel like this, screw you because this. Guess what? That's weird hand motion. But guess what? Just pull on somebody's robe. or they're a chain or something for a fan, turning them on and off, and just or even earrings, just something that's pulling on beer, something that's going to piss a person off, their shirt sleeve. Because you can't say you're for liberation if you're going and doing that. And it's shut these people down, they're talking crap, and then this guy, is an agent, blah, blah, blah. Even if they are, don't fight over it, because it's the same thing. You're just fighting over who is your agent then. What? So we're all supposed to be so much more empowered and aware, and it's based upon self-awareness. Because if you were going like this and looking at yourself off of everything you did, creating that feedback loop, you'd realize you're in a state of struggling by doing that. It doesn't mean to just accept it, like, oh, they're agents, that's fine, but they're there so you can see them, so you fight over it. That's the whole point. You think they're hiding? They're not hiding. They're supposed to. They couldn't be more obvious. Like literally, you're at the limit. You can't be more obvious because we don't have any other ways to make you more obvious. However, big sign, I'm an agent. So you're supposed to get mad at them and see them as part of the programming. Realize that that's not what we would do if we had control. Because truth is, we'd be living like we're free from the system, and we can do that right here and now. Strangest thing, but we're literally in the landing zone of the liberation. We just don't realize it. We've actually been there for some time, overlapped with the other time, recreating those things. That's why they're like, they don't have mind or anything, because we're creating them out of memory. They're shell, these like interdimensional things. So these are blanket states, and so blanket states and general derogatory abuse become nullified as the individual can't bring forth any valid response without first linking back to the initial expression that they simply disagree or are projecting a negative emotion. One word jumble there. And so, of course, there can be times where they're literally like, this doesn't make sense with this. Cherish that person. Don't turn that person away. And don't smack the other guy that's just like, well, no, I don't have to talk about it because you're just stupid. They're obviously they're not intelligent enough to communicate using language. So again, it goes back all the way when you got like billionaires doing that. They're just like babies pooping their pants and throwing the poop all over the house because they think that's the legitimate way to get what they want. But just don't get into an ego battle. And the point is, let me just read this. I'm like recovering all the points to this. But the point there is that if they go back to the same impression of, well, I've reacted, that's my reason. Or, it's like this, okay, well, it's circular logic. It's the same thing as like a certain other logic, where I don't want to like start naming names and stuff, but where people really don't know why they're doing what they're doing. So through this, the deceivers always present themselves because the deception is not based in truth or actual experience, but a detraction from actual experience or reasoning and a projection of one's own imbalanced emotions or suffering onto another person who they don't realize doesn't have the same suffering. Who they realize doesn't have the same suffering. It's like two word jungles, and they destroyed the whole meaning of it. But that is a hell of a run-on sentence. So through this, the deceivers always present themselves because the deception is based not in truth. So it's like they're taking away from what they see others feeling or knowing, and they just want to cut that down because it doesn't agree with them. And the point is, they're projecting their own imbalanced emotions, and it's not based on reason or actual experience, and it's their own projection of imbalanced emotions or suffering onto another person who they realize doesn't suffer in the same way and is free, just like, this is what I believe, and it's basically not what they believe, but what they've experienced and what they see and they know. Because again, the same thing can happen if somebody who believes, one guy who's projecting his stuff there and the other guy's projecting his stuff there, or guy or lady, ladies. Maybe you could say ladies do this a little bit less, where guys have this ego, because if ladies will do it, they'll just be like, oh, well, you think that, I think this is what we think. Guys do it, it's like, you must bow. But they're sitting there, both of them are projecting beliefs, so no one's right. But in the same sense, they're both right, because it's not a fact. It's just whatever you feel, whatever you want it to be. That's kind of like a mauve something. It's a mauve, what is mauve? Mauve is like violet purple, right? Anyway, and the other guy's like, no, that's more like violet for me. It's like, well, bad example, because I've worked with painters, and they'll like bust out the flips of the strips and be like, no, that's technically, number 445. But the idea is, with subjective things, in reality, which most things are, at least the parts that relate to who we are, okay, and how this works, it's either or. Now, I'm not going to say, objective things like that tree is 4.5 feet tall. Okay, and some guy measures it, and it's like, yeah, but I want to look at it like it's 4 2/3 or something like that. No. But again, that's not what really I'm talking about. We're talking about other issues here, because the point is, when the people are sitting there and reacting, they're not looking at numbers like, no, I counted up this, that, your equation's wrong right there. Nope, it's just because they don't like the person or they don't like the way it works. And so the idea is, usually they're projecting onto somebody when that happens, and they're just giving a general blanket statement or derogatory projection statement. And it's upon a person they don't see having the same suffering as themselves. And so that's literally a vampiric process of energy harvesting, and the whole internet is alight with that. Do not involve yourself. Now here's the part that I was speaking on before, but I wanted to wait until I finished this, and that's all you have to do, all one is to do, is say their piece, say your piece, stand firm in the truth, and know that this has been done, and that's it. All you can do is ask that question, that basically reparation of where exactly, what are you talking about? Like, okay, some general derogatory statement. Okay, well, what's the reason behind this? What part is, what did somebody do to make you say that? Well, it's just, if they don't come up with anything, then don't give into it anymore. It's all you can do. At that point, they yapped, you stood, and I offered to clarify it. They refused that, and that's it. And, if they come back, you can do it again. But just don't repeat. Don't be like a robot at that point, or don't be a fool, basically. But don't then, after like 5 times, you're like, you know what, screw you, and this and that, and flip the table, basically. You don't even have to do that. And again, that's just their way of getting energy and information from you. So, that's it. Just disable it. Disable the illusion, okay? If you break the illusion, you break the enemy. And, I think that was recently in one of the videos, one of the early movies, Enter the Dragon, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah. Break the illusions, see the illusions, break the illusions, not the enemy. Maybe that's the point of that. Because they're really not enemies. The only enemy is the core, the vibration that is feeding off of these things. And if it's happening down here, guess what? Somebody's feeding on them. And it's not just them. It doesn't just stop there. That's how it works. And if somebody's in a good way producing energy, well, you're not the only one that it's going to. It's going to the whole world, and it's going to the higher self, the source that's out of this projected realm. So that's the idea behind it. It's energy vampirism. It works both ways. Don't feed into the illusion. The internet is alight with that. It's basically a form of consciousness entrainment. And it works because we're in a sea of consciousness. So, alright, thank you.